What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the more amazing tournament poker hands that I've seen in a while. But before I do that, I have a couple things I want to talk about really quick. First off, you might have noticed I've been posting less videos here lately, and that's because I've been spending more time focusing over on a new channel I started devoted to cryptocurrency. Even though that channel isn't about poker, I think a lot of you guys would like it if you enjoy some of the more comedic things that we've done here on this channel, so I'd recommend checking it out if you're interested. As far as this channel goes, I'm still going to aim to put a video out every single week. I just only have so much time. So if you're interested in poker, you can stay right here. We'll still have plenty of content coming up this year. And otherwise, you can check out my other channel. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at this hand between Tyler Kenney, actually Bryn Kenney's brother, and Daniel Weinman.
It had to be in U.S. currency. And those three trades were $30 higher than the market. It was the weirdest thing, like someone made the trades to win a bet. So we discussed it, and we just decided to cut it in half.
Okay.
And I gave him back half.
That's fair.
Yeah, and if it was the other way, you know, we would have probably decided to go to a group of 8. We go pick 4, and he picks 4 poker players, and they decide. Just because it was so ambiguous.
Sure.
In the future, we'll pick which exchange we should use.
He just had a baby, so you have to, like, you got to give him
That's why he got the buyout. And he tried to get the buyout even lower because he's having a baby. And I was like, Chris. And then he final table something the next week.
So all of a sudden, we have Daniel Weinman 3-betting the 5-9 offsuit here. So we have Tyler, who opened the button with King-9 suited. This is a strong hand, 3-handed, and Daniel picking the 5-9 offsuit in the big blind to 3-bet.
Well, I think what he's thinking right now is that he could take control of the non-aggressive side of this. You know, maybe he could bubble play Tyler a little bit.
This is certainly based on game flow, not based on the strength of his hand.
Right.
Tyler putting out a call here with King-9 suited as he should, and we're going to see these two top pros go to a flop.
Our hand begins 3-handed, and before we jump into the hand itself, it's important to understand the way the payouts are going to affect this hand. Here we can see payouts of $892,000 for first, $525,000 for second, and $328,000 for third. So we have quite a difference in pay between all 3 spots, and we have 2 players with much bigger stacks. When you're in a tournament and you are a bigger stack, you're oftentimes playing a bit of a different game against other big stacks than you are against small stacks. Small stacks are just trying to survive, maybe double up and level up or ladder up on the payouts, whereas big stacks have to be much more concerned with trying to play for the win or making sure they get a payout that's equal to the value of their stack. You don't want to be as risky against other big stacks because if you are risky, it could cost you your tournament life. The thing is, if you don't ever take any risks against those guys, then you become too tight and they can run you over. So it's a bit of a balancing act of knowing when to try and get aggressive against other big stacks. Our hand begins with Tyler Kenney opening up the King-9 suited on the button, certainly standard, and he decides to go to 350K at blinds of 75, 150K, also completely fine. The small blind gets out of the way, and now the other big stack, Daniel Weinman, looks down at 9-5 offsuit. Now, in this situation, both players are over 100 big blinds deep, so they're playing some actual serious poker here that you don't see too often when we look at tournaments. Daniel does decide to go ahead and 3-bet with the 9-5 offsuit, and you might be wondering, why does Daniel do this? Well, if you think the button is opening too many hands, you can take some of your worst hands in the big blind and re-raise them because you don't need that much equity to bluff. If the button decides to open something like 60, 70, 80% of his holdings, then you can go after him by re-raising with these bad hands, and you won't really need much equity at all to do so. The problem is if your opponent isn't opening wide and they are playing loose and aggressive against the raise, well then your 3-bet will be burning money. So this is the kind of play you might want to make against a weaker or loose player, but not against a good solid regular. Anyway, Kenney does decide to go ahead and make the call with King-9 suited, certainly the standard play, and let's take a flop.
Now, Daniel's never doing that with Ace-King. It's just standard for Tyler there to not worry about Ace-King. I mean, he really hasn't been that far out of line.
It's certainly part of Daniel's range. However, I think King-9 suited is a strong enough hand where if you were folding, considering you're opening so many buttons,
right,
it becomes profitable now for Daniel to 3-bet any 2 cards.
Whereas you would give a lot more respect to Nathan.
If Nathan had 3-bet me, I probably would be ditching the King-9
You're not
suited.
doing great against Nathan's 3-bet range, I don't think.
I'm just trying to point that out to the people listening there. You know? you can't go wrong listening to the advice that these two people are giving. So
Daniel 3-bets and checks this board. Tyler now considering a bluff. All he really has is 2 overcards. He can go runner straight.
Do you
Well,
think that's a strange decision not to c-bet by Daniel?
well, I think
No,
Daniel. I think a
I
check
like
raise by
Do you think
Daniel might
Tyler's
be
range
huge.
includes like a lot of
I would be check calling this all day. And in fact,
Okay.
this is a board where, remember, these players are 100 big blinds deep. This is actually a board that favors Tyler's range more than Daniel's, as Daniel probably isn't 3-betting hands like pocket 4s, pocket 5s, maybe not even pocket 8s, whereas all of these hands are in Tyler's range.
A good rule of thumb here out of position in Daniel's shoes is when you have middle pair in a sizable pot out of position, go ahead and check and look to play for check call. You could maybe go for a very small bet size here with a lot of hands. I think that's a reasonable strategy too, but it opens the door for getting raised, and then you're in a very difficult situation. By checking, you add a few stronger hands to your check call range, and if your opponent does want to bluff when you check, it's a nice way to balance it out with maybe a few other very weak hands that you just want to check fold. Once Daniel checks it over to Tyler, Tyler decides to go ahead and take a stab. Now, I'm not a huge fan of betting this hand on the flop. In fact, I think it's one of your worst hands you can choose to bet with. Having 2 hearts in your hand makes it more likely that Daniel has something to check call, like ace king of diamonds. It's much better here to have a hand like king 9 of diamonds, where you have the backdoor flush draw and you also block a few of your opponent's check calls. Also, try and think about hands that Tyler could have that have less equity than this one, and it's kind of hard to even come up with any. Just to play devil's advocate, this hand does have a lot of equity against a check call range. Your king or 9 will mainly be good when your opponent does check call, but I think I still lean towards a passive action here and checking it back. Anyway, he bets, and now Daniel has a crystal clear check call, which he makes, and let's take a turn.
And ace king and the hand that I have.
okay.
That card doesn't help at all.
Finding
It
out
is
on the
another
stream I
overcard.
c-bet too much. That's good.
Everyone calls a C-bet. You got to bet the turn. That's the real spot now.
It changes if you're like 35 big blinds deep, when you're happy to just bet aces and get it all
Right.
in. But what happens when you
Right,
c-bet
yeah, you're not
aces
trying to
here
get
and
100 big blinds
you
in with
get
one
raised?
pair right here.
Well, that's how I felt about the ace-5 of diamonds he led. I thought that's a good check call spot, and he got thin value out of it, to his credit. I probably wouldn't have gone for it and made less money.
It looked like Tyler was putting together chips for a bet, now reconsidering. What does this mean to you, Dave, when he was about to put out a bet? And now
Weak.
This is weak.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually had in tournaments where I've moved 2 big stacks out in front, or 3 big stacks out in front, then pulled them back and checked with the nuts. And the guy just pounded on me, and as I got called. Yeah, so jockeying with your chips is usually, you know, a weakness.
It's legitimate. It means you're actually reconsidering the bet.
No, usually I think they're doing it to make you think that, to slow you down from betting when they check. He actually went back and put the bet in.
Well, here's an interesting thing. The bet size here, not relative to the pot, but the actual bet size, the fact he threw in an extra blue chip on there, that's like almost psychologically like he's trying to make it look a little more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Or just like, I'll just throw this on top too. I don't care what I bet. I have the best hand. You know?
So you would read this as weak?
And what he just did, I would read as strong.
As strong?
That extra
Okay.
chip, yeah, too. And he even went back and made the bet. If he would have checked after playing with his chips, I would have known he's got king high, and he just doesn't want me to blast.
Wow. I mean, after Daniel made like the motions and was like smiling or whatever, that looked like it was going to be a fold, didn't it?
The turn comes the 10 of hearts, and Daniel checks it over to Tyler once again. In this situation, there are many, many hands I'd prefer to bluff with than king 9. You can have queen jack suited, jack 9 suited, 9-7 suited, queen 9 suited, really so many other great candidates to bluff with that I don't like using one of my worst possible hands. Tyler has other plans though, as he sizes up an over 3 million chip bet in the turn. Now, the commentators decide to launch into a very relevant and important conversation on the $5,000 chip being added.
The fact he threw in an extra blue chip on there, That's like almost psychologically, like he's trying to make it look a little more expensive.
Focusing on elements like the extra chip here are a complete waste of time. Think about the total range. Think about what hands you'd want to play. Think about the size of the bet in relation to the pot. You know, if a bet was, let's just say, for example, 40% of the pot, and an extra chip made it 41% of the pot, why would you want to use that to try and change your decision? It shouldn't make much difference at all. Those are almost identical sizes. If you think it's strong when they do it, well, then your opponent could level you and put it in as a bluff. Or if you think it's weak when they do it, they could level you and put it in when they're strong. So don't even go down this road. Just think about the bet size and play good poker. Anyway, now over to Daniel with 9-5. Tough spot here with his middle pair, but I think I lean a little more towards check call than check fold. You could make a good argument for check fold, and you could say, Doug, I'd rather check call with hands like 7-4 or 6-4, where I have bottom pair instead of middle pair, but better playability. And I could get behind that for sure. Additionally, when you have a 9 in your hand, you block a bunch of the bluffs that you want your opponent to have. Hands like Jack 9 suited, hands like 9-7 suited. These are all hands that you could be, blocking now when you have a 9. However, if you fold all of your middle pairs that don't have gutters to go along with them, then you're probably going to be overfolding the turn when you consider the fact that you're also going to have hands like 4-3 suited, or maybe ace-4 suited, or ace-king or ace-queen, or ace-queen backdoor flush draw. I guess that is ace-queen. But the point remains that you still have so many other hands in your range that if you start check folding pairs like middle pair on the flop, you might end up simply overfolding. So I think if I had to lean towards anything, I would say you should mainly call here and work in a fold from time to time. Daniel does decide to make the call, and let's take a river.
I thought the hand was just over then.
And Tyler doesn't look very happy, and he just touched his face, pacifying himself a little bit,
Yeah, I just think it's very strange. Like, it's not often that people have like an exchange, like gestures and all that, and then continue with the hand. Such a big pot, such a big time.
And he was almost saying, I don't have much, but I got to call you. Now that 3 didn't change that much. I mean, it's really, Daniel is holding on to those pairs and winning hands, the ace deuce, and right now he hit the 5. His only fear is if the guy has, if Tyler has an 8, the 10 and the 3 shouldn't really play into the hands that much.
So it looks like Tyler is carving out chips not for his bet size, but rather to size up his own stack and to see how many chips he has left. Tyler has less than a pot-sized bet left. There's about 11.4 million chips in the pot. Tyler has 10.7 million chips behind, and he shoves all in.
And what do you think Nathan's doing right now?
Throwing a party in his mind. That's what I would be doing.
Yes, he's saying, how did this happen? I only have 5 million. And it always happens.
The river comes a 3, and unless Daniel somehow gets bluffed here, he's going to win this pot. He checks it over to Tyler, and now Tyler has to make a serious decision about whether he should bluff the river or not. While I wasn't a huge fan of the flop or turn bets, I think the river is actually a great spot to go for it. You would much prefer to go with a hand like King 9 suited here rather than a hand like, let's just say, 9-7 suited, because you want your opponent to have a 7 in their hand and fold. A hand like 7-5 suited or 7-4 suited, these could be hands that decide to check call twice and fold the river. Generally speaking, when you do decide to bet a couple of streets and you get to the river, you want to fire that last barrel with hands that don't block some draws your opponent can have. And while there's no flush draw on this board, pair plus straight draws are really the only hands that come to mind. So I do prefer this hand over a Jack 7 suited, a 9-7 suited, or a 9-6 suited. Tyler decides that he has to do what he has to do, and he moves in. Now over to Dan. You've got that middle pair on the flop. Not a very good turn for you, but a pretty safe river. He will have a couple 10s from time to time, and I'm sure if he had a hand like 8-7 or 8-6 suited, he'd work in a check call on the flop as well. He might also occasionally trap the flop with a hand like aces, but that's not going to be too often, as he should mainly be betting here on the flop. So is a 5 high enough in his range to call down? I think his decision is very close either way. I could see folding being reasonable. I can also see calling being reasonable. I think if you wanted to try and play a little bit of both of those in your strategy, that's completely fine. The thing is this, when you have hands that aren't really draws on the turn and you're facing bets that are large and you know there could be a follow-up bet in the river, I will say don't look to call, fold those hands too often. I'm much more okay with someone deciding to call, and then fold a hand like 6-4 suited than a hand like 9-5. Because in the situation where you have 6-4, you have so many more rivers that you can improve on compared to the 9-5, that even if you're planning on going call, fold, your opponent's river jams will not be nearly as effective because you call the river much more often if they're bluffing. So I don't like using hands that can't improve as often as hands to call to and let go on the river. So for these reasons, I think I lean a little bit more towards a call, but let's see if Daniel can sniff this one out and make the call.
It's going to be very hard for Daniel to find this call. If he does, then he saw his cards. I mean,
If Daniel makes this call, then he's my hero.
he's his hero or cheating. He's definitely not cheating, if anybody thought that was a reference.
Now, what's going through Daniel's head is Tyler shoving all in? Is that the bet size he's going to choose with his value hands? In other words, if Tyler happened to have a hand like pocket 4s, pocket 8s, 6-7 suited, is he now going to shove all in? The other thing going through Daniel's head is he going to do this with was he betting the flop with hands like Jack 9, Queen Jack, all these hands, Queen 9, hands that turned equity? And also an important consideration is when he does just have the King 9, no pair, no draw, is he turning that, is he bluffing 3 barrels in this way?
I mean, does he have 6-7? Did he just flop it on me? What other hand can you barrel everything on? Do you have a set? Somehow he had 8-10, hit 2 pair. I mean, the hand doesn't really make sense, but Daniel only has a 5.
Also, Tyler would probably play ace-deuce this way. If I had ace-deuce in Tyler's shoes, I would be betting flop and turn. The other thing that I would be thinking if I were Daniel's, I do have a 9 in my hand, which reduce some of the bluff combos. If we can assume that Tyler is only betting the turn when he does have equity with hands like Jack 9 or Queen 9, or perhaps 7-9 suited, the fact that Daniel has a 9 reduces some of those combos. And the fact that Daniel is thinking about this.
Well, now, Daniel 3-bet pre-flop, so he's trying to wonder if Tyler's like just putting him on an ace-king type hand too. But no matter what he thinks, this is just too hard of a call to make for so much right now. A minimum of a $200,000 call if he makes it.
And without seeing Tyler Kenney, you can tell he's related to Bryn by this hand.
Absolutely.
Call!
Oh my God, that's incredible.
What an unbelievable call by Daniel
That's incredible.
Weinman.
Daniel is my new hero.
Wow.
And just like that, Tyler busts in 3rd place for much less money, and the short-stacked 3rd player is pumped that he's getting 2nd place money. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean Tyler made a mistake. Sometimes you just gotta run it. But you should be much more careful and probably pick slightly better spots than this one. That's going to do it for me today, guys. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, join the team, and we're going to have a video out every week for you guys, so stay tuned.